Hi, this is the Vibrant Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm your host, Christy Oshita.
Hi, entrepreneurs. This is Christy with the Vibrant Entrepreneur Podcast. So I'm sharing my entrepreneurial journey from coming from Hawaii to New York City and then traveling all of the boroughs in a crazy ride of basically living in rooms with no windows to rooms that weren't really rooms, but at least had a wall, and in the South Bronx to living in Chinatown with a living room with no wall. So it couldn't get worse, probably, but then, I ended up kind of getting a stable place. I was living with my boyfriend, and we were living in Queens, East Elmhurst. So not even like a hip area. Not that anything's wrong with that, but I had to take a bus to get to the subway to get to the city. So it was a good hour, 45 minutes just to be safe kind of ride. But by living there, I was able to save a lot of money, and I just started to teach tennis lessons. So I got a job at Sutton East Tennis Club teaching tennis lessons during the winter when it would be impossible to find outdoor location to teach. And so during that time, I was calling places to find places to offer tennis lessons. And I was trying to go after the youth tennis so I could do indoor gyms, looking for tennis courts, indoor courts, courts on top of a roof, courts anywhere. And I found a place in Gramercy Park. It's crazy. It was a city park, and there was tennis lines and holes, but and the holes weren't really there, it seemed. So what we do is we actually got a cinder block and we filled it with cement, and then we put the tennis net in there made out of PVC. And then I think we initially started off with like this green fencing net, this plastic one that you can get from Home Depot. And we would drive, so me and my boyfriend would drive to the city, we would put the net up, and then I would teach the tennis lesson. And this was a park, so not really with grass, but just a park with like basketball and baseball. So right behind the tennis court was like people playing cricket. And remember, we'd kind of get into like, not scuffles with them, but kind of say like, hey, like, watch out, we're playing tennis here. And they wanted to play cricket. So it was really stressful trying to make sure we got the court before other people did. But it was such a great location, and people would come up to me all the time about wanting to take tennis lessons, and I was able to charge like $75. It was amazing. I was able to make money and see how I could create a business off of it and hire instructors. So that was a great location. And then I found, I think, a location in Lower East Side that let me rent their gym to do youth mini tennis, and I got mini tennis nets. And then the big thing is I got this one place called, at Soho, it's not Soho, it's St. Patrick's Old Cathedral. I remember this place well. And this guy named Chris, really nice guy, but I swear, he reminded me of the guy from The Simpsons, Ned, I think, but really nice guy. And, they let me rent it because they weren't doing anything with the gym. And I was like, oh, amazing location. And it had a pretty big space, and there wasn't that many columns, which was the problem. And I remember the crazy thing was I think it was the start of the first season, and it might have been the fall. And the fall was a big time for youth activities because everyone planned their activities and they try to get in. So I remember just like at just in the nick of time ordering this huge tennis net. And it was huge, like where you could, it was a real tennis net, and they had poles this thick, and the width of a full tennis net. And I think the thickness of the pole was like 3 inches. Okay, 3 inches in diameter. So that's how thick the poles were. I ordered 2 of them, I think, and like I didn't even know what these tennis nets looked like. I had them delivered by freight straight to this cathedral. Like it literally came in the day of the first lesson, and it turned out we didn't even need all the poles, so we would only use 2 of the poles, and we'd set it up every time, and they'd let us store it in the stage. And it worked out perfectly. I mean, just by luck, because the nets were great. And then I would put even 2 kids lessons on one half court. It was a great location, and we did a lot of tennis lessons there. And then another pivotal place we did was Upper West Side in Columbus Circle, and I could not, like, I knew there was a tennis court there, but I could not for the life of me get the person who's in charge of the facilities to respond to me. So I would call her and email and call her. I'd look her up on the directory and leave messages. And like, one day I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sneak into the building. So it was like literally John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And I like literally just like, you're supposed to check in, but I think I just walked right in, went to her office and was like, hey, we've been I've been calling you about this tennis court we want to rent. And to my surprise, she goes, oh, hey, yeah, I got your messages. I was like, oh, you did? Oh, of course. Yeah, of course you did. Right. Okay. And she was like, all right, well, and she let me rent it out as a fair price. And that was a great location. So, I mean, from there, we just added more locations that we could, but those were the best ones, really. But then we also started to do some indoor tennis at schools, and then we did summer camp, which is really big, but so much work. It was so much work. It was kind of just a lot. It's stressful. But that was a huge money maker. There was just so much demand in the city, and we did search engine optimization and all that stuff. But the fact is that people wanted our product, and it was just about making sure we could get it to them and making sure everybody showed up. All the college kids I had to hire, or post-grad college students I hired, would show up on Saturday morning instead of like sleeping in because they probably went out. That was the hardest thing, and making sure all of the facilities were open and making sure everyone was there on time, and it was just so hard. So I just remember coming home to Hawaii and just looking at my sister and just bursting into tears just by how much overwhelmed I was, because it's a recreational a service, meaning like you have to be available on the weekends, on the evenings, in the morning, during the day. There's not business hours for it, and I just was so overwhelmed, and I just knew I needed to get out. But even then, it took time. We had hired a couple of major general managers. It just took a long time, so I ended up having Mike, who was my boyfriend at the time. I think we broke up, but we were friends, and he knew all about the business. I ended up having him run the business until the leases ended, because we had leases with the city. Side note, we had a lease at McCarran Park in Williamsburg, and that was a fantastic location. So I think the thing is we would do locations, and we would offer the same awesome tennis lessons, but I could see how location, like, not because of if the service was different, but just purely on location, how certain locations just did way better than others. And it was such a good experience in seeing that people just wanted the service. It was a product people wanted, and in that right location. And that I could see that, if I could have put the same amount of effort in like a place that was a little farther out. For example, once we got into a few stops off from the city, we just didn't have as much central demand, and I think like you're farther from the train stop, it was just harder. So the biggest thing I need to take from that is just that location matters, where you are matters, and it's not just the product, but it's that fit of location and product. And so sometimes I shouldn't take it personally if I create an amazing product, but it's just in the wrong location, or the audience is just not right. So that's my takeaway, and that was my story with Bumblebee Tennis. It was an amazing time, and I loved that business, but it just had come time for me to try something different. So my next podcast, I'm going to talk about Alana Life and Fitness, my next chapter, and me and getting into publishing and podcasts. So look forward to talking to you then.